If you stick a pizza in front of me, I'm going to eat that 9 times out of 10. And that 10th time, I'm only eating the salad after I've eaten the pizza. So to put in my home what can only be described as a wall of a garden was a chance for me to change how and what I eat. The setup process for Gardyn, or as my child likes to call it, Gardyn, was extremely easy. And actually, there was only a few components really in the box when you got right down to it. It took me about an afternoon, and whenever I needed it, there were videos in the application to show me exactly what they meant throughout setup. And I did that with my kid, which means it was going to take longer, but within a couple of hours, I had the device set up, working in the application, and we were starting to install our first pods. They are called Y-cubes, and as you put them in, what you're going to notice is a couple of things. Number one, it has the name on it, so you know what you're getting. But number two, there's a color pattern on it, and this introduces the first real smart component of this system, because those dots and those colors are meant to tell the system what it is you've put in your garden. There are 2 cameras on there, and they are being used to take little snapshots of how things are going and then to give you some information that we'll get to in a bit. But once you've completed putting in all of these Y-cubes that you got with your initial purchase, well, now it's kind of time to wait. What I noticed right away is I basically filled up the tank and connected it through that app, and then it was almost a set and forget device because the lighting system is automated, the watering is automated, and you really just have to react to their assistant named Kelby. It's an incredibly sophisticated watering and lighting system too, and the LEDs that go all the way up, they're not very hot to the touch. They get warm, but they're not super hot, and the watering system is so sophisticated, although it's just a bunch of tubes, that it doesn't overuse water, and I've been able to maintain plants for a very long time with just a little water. Within a few days, I start to see some sprouts coming out. I just start to see the very basics of plants starting, and that's pretty exciting to me because I can see it working, and I'm terrible with gardens, but this also starts to change how we live in the home because my kid gets excited about veggies and about leaves in his diet. And honestly, if you think you don't think, just for me, if I'm getting that pizza, I'm really excited, but I swear he would only eat cheese pizza if I allowed it. So we give it a few weeks, and my kid's starting to just pick leaves off of these plants. He's starting to try different ones. He wants to try different ones. He's getting really excited about the idea of tomatoes, sweet peppers, and even the jalapenos that we got with this. Plus, like I said, he's just taking leaves and trying them and finding out he likes kale. And then we start to put greens in our burgers, and I start to hide greens in pastas and in sauces and in different things that I blend up or include in just recipes with the Instapot. And he's not noticing all of this inclusion of green in his life. And actually, I'm not either, as I can put it in even smoothies and not be totally grossed out because I have so many choices for different leafy greens to pick from. So suddenly I've got my child eating greens, but then we've got a number of friends and family that are spending money, just a ton on this stuff. And honestly, with the Y-cubes that we got over a few months with this, I had too much, and I started to feed the village, so to speak. And it's gotten to the point where I'm having to send huge Tupperware bins of leafy greens away because I can't keep up with it, our family can't keep up with it, and we just need other people to keep up with it. Now, there's some effort that you have to put into this device, but you're pretty much told what you have to do when you have to do it. And for example, right now, my tank is actually empty, and I let that happen because every month or so you have to clean out the tank, and you gotta add a little bit of plant food, plus you gotta add the water in because, it uses water, and it seems to use water more and more as your leafy greens get bigger and bigger and more out of control. Plus, you have to manage the roots a little bit. And actually, I'm not going to pick this one up right now because it's a little wet on the bottom, but you know what? You have to cut those roots out so it doesn't start to go into those pipes behind the system. And on top of that, you have to just trim these plants every once in a while. You've got to keep it moving because the growth is unstoppable. And again, it's not like I'm doing anything to make them grow. It's just water and the automated system doing the rest. Kelby told me a number of things as we went along that I had to do to take care of my system. Not just the water being empty or getting low in the system. They actually told me a couple of times when it was time to harvest certain plants or teach me certain things about plants, when they're the best and when you need to deal with something. And that was really impactful to making sure that I got great veggies out of it. And probably the best example of this for me is the cherry tomatoes that I now have just a ton of tomatoes started because I realized through Kelby telling me that I had to trim that plant quite a bit, make sure I was focusing on the flowers. And yeah, you might know that you have to kind of trim those kinds of plants, but I didn't, and that's the point. One of my favorite components is that I'm getting fresh herbs out of this, and actually now I'm able to grab sage almost every day. The mint is out of control, and cilantro is in almost everything I do. And I know lots of you will go, I hate that, and I love it. Now, here are the questions you probably have right off the bat. And I think the first thing to talk about are the cameras, because I talked a little bit about them, but you know, they can be a privacy concern for many. So what's going on with those cameras is they're just taking snapshots of your garden, and they're kind of placed in different locations, and you can live view them, but that's not really what they're used for. It's meant as that snapshot, then they analyze it with their cloud service to make sure that things are going well and to give you any of those suggestions through Kelby. I think one of the big questions that many of you have is, what's the hardest thing about this? And well, there isn't much. Probably the hardest thing is keeping up with how much is coming out. I can't eat this much every day. Now, they did teach me that you can only take up to 2/3 of the plant in order to keep it growing and kind of managing the plants growing in the right direction. They're living things, so they kind of do what they want, but I've learned to start navigating them in the right direction. Otherwise, this system is incredibly easy and it just works on its own. I did have a few failures, and I think that's always a great question to answer even if you're not asking it right off the bat. Now, what I had fail was a couple of the herbs, and they tend to take more to kind of come out, and plants like this tend to overgrow and kind of hide the lighting. So again, this is where you have to do a little bit of work with those, and you have to think about placement. But one of the nice things is these are actually the Y cubes pulled right out of the system. You can go take them and move them around as you see fit to help the growth of those other items that maybe aren't doing so well. The lighting actually probably raises a lot of questions. Now, number one, I talked about it's not getting that hot, but it can be very intense. And next to my kitchen, that's okay. It provides lighting on its own, and I kind of enjoy it. But the system is not reacting to natural lighting. It's not reducing it. You can manually schedule your lighting, and therefore you can change how it works, but I've just left it on automatic. Now, what that means is in the middle of the night, I often have a big light in my home. So you'll want to think about placement. I didn't mind it in the kitchen, but that's maybe one piece for you. The biggest benefit to this is the taste. And I think there's a pretty big difference between, you know, you go to a grocery store and you buy a bag of lettuce versus you pick it right off of this device. And there really is a difference here, guys. And I think that is probably the thing I would trend you the most to. Again, I had said earlier, my kid loves kale. Well, he loves this kale. He doesn't love the stuff you get from the store. there is a big difference. And what about you planting something that you just want yourself? And this was one of the very first questions I had. And actually you can do that. They sell blank Y cubes, and that means there's no seed embedded in it, but then you go put your seeds in and then you'll be able to grow whatever you want. So that's what's coming for us. We've talked about a pea pod or peas plant to go within this garden, and that's what we're going to tackle here in a little bit. What is the cost? Now, this is not a cheap system whatsoever, and there is a subscription component, but what I've found over time is that maybe I wouldn't need the subscription component all the time, because honestly, I've been overgrown with the plants that I have. I haven't had to do anything to keep them alive, and so a monthly subscription for a long time, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But you can go and ad hoc buy new Y cubes. The price goes up if you're not on the subscription service, but I think that's a great option for getting what you need, maybe just as you lose plants or you want to move on to something else. And their lineup of products is actually pretty extensive, and that's where, you know, this is sitting here, Swiss chard is sitting here. I don't even know what this one is called, but you know, there's so many different types that you might want to move on at some point, or you might want to double up on something that you have that you're using a lot of. I do think it's a good idea to kind of start with the subscription service and then see what you want to do. There's some extra features that do come with this, and it is important to note that you're getting all these extra Y cubes for that $30 to $40 approximate a month for the subscription. But again, you're replacing essentially what you're buying in a grocery store with that subscription service, plus you're getting all of these automated features. So I think it's worth it for a few months to kind of get you rolling, and then I think you'll be able to decide whether you want to continue with that or just buy additional Y cubes yourself as you need them. So I think this is a truly great system if you're looking for a garden system at all. And I think that this is the level that I would suggest people go to, not those little boxes. This is truly a system that I can recommend, even for the price, guys. So go check it out. All the links are down below. There's some extra dollars off for you since you're Automate Your Life subscribers. Otherwise, thanks for watching today. And of course, don't hate, automate.